Welcome to Nature Labs' live coverage of the 2025 Newfoundland and Labrador provincial election. At Nature Labs, as you know, we try to help you go beyond what you're hearing on the news to define those hard to understand terms and help you relate what's happening in an election like this one tonight to what you're learning in class and what it might mean for the future of our country at this critical juncture in our nation's history. So, obviously, if you're living in Newfoundland or Labrador, you know why this election matters. It's about power and who gets to make the decisions that will affect your province in the years to come. Why should you care about what's happening in Newfoundland and Labrador if you don't live in Newfoundland and Labrador? Well, of course, what happens in every province impacts our country as a whole. We're only as great as the sum of our parts. And Newfoundland's an important part. It's our most recent province, if you didn't already know that. It came into part of Confederation in 1949. But beyond that, it's of course an important province in terms of the resource sector. And as we know, Canada as a trading nation is heavily reliant on resources. This election in Newfoundland and Labrador is really centered on some central questions that we've been discussing in class in terms of how we should go forward to tackle the big issues around economic sovereignty, around national sovereignty, around the cost of living crisis, and of course how we can tackle those issues while still tackling other problems that haven't just gone away with the Donald Trump provoked trade war, like the environment, climate change, and biodiversity. All of those issues are front and center of this election campaign. And though we just finished a federal election campaign last spring, obviously, being that the federal government is a minority government, there's always a possibility of another election in the not too distant future. So watching what happens in these provincial elections is very important. And well, for many years, Newfoundland was a relatively stable province in terms of turning out sort of the same electoral results over and over again. We're increasingly seeing a heightened competition. And like the federal scene, in Newfoundland and Labrador, this is really a two-party race, although the NDP, of course, will have a say in what happens, as well potentially as independent candidates. Now, as you know from social studies class, this isn't a popularity contest. The party that wins with the most votes in the popular vote column doesn't necessarily mean that's who gets to form government. That's the case federally. That's certainly the case in this election in Newfoundland and Labrador. At dissolution, the Liberal Party was in government. In fact, they've been in government for quite some time. They're seeking re-election their fourth term. That's a pretty unprecedented stat. We'll get into that in a bit later. Their chief competitor is the Progressive Conservative Party. And of course, as I said, the NDP will play a role, although not a significant role, compared to other provinces in this country. We'll get into the issues as the night goes along, but the key thing to look for here is to see which party, of course, can get the most seats to form government, because that's what really matters. And in this case, like in a lot of places in this country, the Conservative vote is heavily weighted to the rural communities, where they'll probably run up their vote quite substantially, whereas the Liberal vote is a little bit more efficient. It's spread across more ridings, meaning they might not necessarily win the popular vote, but have a real chance to gain the most seats in the House of Assembly. Now, if you're from BC or from Ontario, you're saying, what's the House of Assembly? Well, remember, we call the legislatures in this country different names in different places, but it's all essentially the same thing. The legislatures, in this case, the members of the House of Assembly, you need 21 members of the House of Assembly to form a majority government. There are 40 seats as a result in that House of Assembly, and tonight we're looking to see which party will get the most seats. Right now, polls show us that the Liberals are favored to win this election, again, because of that efficiency of vote. They have more ridings where they're competitive than the Progressive Conservative Party. But that being said, surprises can happen, and the results overall are tightening in Newfoundland. We're seeing this urban-rural divide. Again, we'll get into this more as the night goes on. But like we're seeing in a lot of other parts of the country, there is this dichotomy between rural and urban. There's a dichotomy between conservative and liberal voters, people who are risk-averse, people who want to see more progressive policies. All these issues will be playing out tonight, and we'll see in the coming hours who will get a chance to govern Newfoundland and Labrador going forward, whether it's a majority, and what this might mean for all of us in Canada.